everyone. Welcome to our virtual PAC house party and fundraiser. It's really wonderful to see you all. It would only be better if we could be together in person, but someday. A little bit of a tease this past summer, but I think it's coming. I'm Andy Coe. I'm Executive Director of Safety and Justice Oregon, home of the Safety and Justice PAC. As many of you know, Safety and Justice PAC supports legislators and local candidates who are committed to ending mass incarceration, advancing racial justice, and helping survivors of violence heal. The work is especially important because in Salem, we often face fear-based messaging, and we need to have somebody who understands our issues in the House, dealing with some of that, as well as people who understand what it is that we're trying to do. They understand PSJ's holistic point of view when it comes to criminal justice reform, and they can actually share that with other elected officials. It's a position that we probably will never be in, but it's critically important that we have people who support PSJ, our affiliated 501c3, as well as Safety and Justice Oregon's work. So we have a great program tonight. We have a couple great speakers. Shannon will give a little bit of a presentation as well as a report back on some of the work that we're doing. And I wanted to thank in particular our hosts for the house party. And I'm going to have to read the list. I would like to say that I tried to memorize it tonight, but I did not. Although I think I can say everyone's names because I know most of you very well. Aisling Coghlan, Arthur Towers, Don Mack, Felisa Hagins, Iris Maria Chávez, Jodi and Dave Hansen, who I saw down in the corner there. Hey, Jodi and Dave. Kate Gonsalves, Lamar Wise, Paul Solomon, Phil Donovan, Peter Tetrick, Ricardo Lujan-Valerio, Roey Thorpe, Sarah Armstrong, Samaritan Kundin, Shani has Harris-Bagwell, and Zoe Klingmann. Thank you all for your generous support and your outreach for the House PAC, the PAC house party. And I've got a board meeting on my mind here. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Shannon, who will update you on a little bit of our work. And it's just great to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you. And I agree with Aaron. It's wonderful that we can get people from different parts of the state by having this virtual, but I so do miss being in person with all of you. I'm Shannon. I'm the Deputy Director at Safety and Justice Oregon, and excited to host you for this, be part of hosting you for this PAC house party. This has been, I'm like, am I hyperbolic? But no, this is such a critical time. And I know people are always saying that, but it for real is, since the summer of 2020, depending on where we were on the political spectrum, people have had a reckoning, an awakening, an impetus to do more and go further. And we have done that work. We worked to convene a coalition where we dug deep with impacted people, with BIPOC-led and by and for organizations, bringing folks to a criminal justice table to bring forward some of the most transformative legislation of the last legislative session. And while that piece of legislation didn't pass, some pieces of it did. And even those pieces are big deals. Like we abolished supervision fees for people on probation and parole. That's a really big deal. We got a $4 million investment for restorative justice programs. We got a $1.5 million investment for a Black-led effort to reimagine safety in Oregon. And we got a $10 million investment in culturally specific services in Oregon. Those are huge wins for a session where our bill didn't pass. And there is so much more work to do. We could have been the second state in the country to limit when police officers can stop people for minor traffic infractions, like having a taillight out, so we could prevent the kinds of horrific harm and murders that have happened, that have brought criminal justice issues to the forefront of everyone in this country.
We
So
already adopted.
Hey, Jamie. No worries. So it's just a really critical time. We have tons of work to do. We have great partners to do it with, but it also takes champions. And so the Safety and Justice PAC mostly focuses, as Andy said, on legislative champions and progressive district attorneys. And so, legislators who vote with us often, especially if they're in tough races, get attacked for voting with us. And we know it's going to be a huge issue in this election cycle, right? It's already a big issue all over the news, locally and nationally, that, progressive reforms are leading to all kinds of stuff. It's not true, to be clear, but that's going to be the narrative. And the Safety and Justice PAC is the only PAC in Oregon, and one of few in the country that step up for candidates who take those votes. Like, it's so important. For those of us who've been in this work for a while, or if you haven't, it's been a long time coming to get to this point where we have this much momentum, and supporting our champions is going to be critical to maintaining it and not suffering a backlash. Like, we just can't let that happen. So we'll be working hard. So this coming year, right, 2022 is a huge election year, and that's part of what we're raising money for now. In May, the district attorneys, over half of them will be up. We know that there are going to be two highly contested races, Marion County and Washington County, where we have entrenched old school DAs. I think I saw one of those candidates at least here, maybe both, the progressive candidates. So that's exciting that they're in the room, and we've got to help them get over the finish line if we choose to endorse them. I guess we haven't yet, but anyway. And this work is so critical, as we've seen with Mike Schmidt, who I know is in the room, like the attacks he's come under for his progressive stances. Chesa Boudin, the San Francisco DA, who's very progressive, is facing a recall. Like, we are the people who are going to stand up and help these leaders keep fighting for us. And it's just so critical. So I know that you all are here because you know that, but just want to remind us and thank you for being here, because we have a lot of work to do moving forward. And I'm excited to introduce the next person who's going to speak, who's Deschutes County District Attorney John Hummel. Safety and Justice PAC was involved, I might even say instrumental, in helping elect John to office in 2014. And he has made local reforms and transformations. And then he has also stood up and advocated to eliminate Measure 11 for youth. He continues to fight for reforms, and I'll say he is out there, out front, loud and proud, paving the pathway for what a progressive prosecutor can look like in Oregon. And so we're really excited to have John here. And was I supposed to say anything else about John? I don't think so. John, I will turn it over to you to talk a little bit about yourself and your work. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Honored to be here. I didn't know if I'd make it here on time. Sorry, Shannon, if you're freaked out by me saying that, but I was tied up in court, with an ugly battle. But I knew when I got here, if I got here, which I did, that I would feel calm and among friends, and you're all my people. So thank you. You're helping me feel supported, and that's a big part of the community we're creating across the state. So why do we need progressive district attorneys in Oregon? Well, it's football season now, right? And when I was a kid, I was a huge sports fan. I still am. I don't watch it as much now, but I still can't keep these kind of sports analogies out of my lexicon. So we need progressive district attorneys in Oregon because of defense, offense, and special teams, right? We're going to talk football here. So let's talk about defense first. Here's why we need progressive district attorneys in Oregon to play good defense. I started my career as a public defender in, 1995. I was representing farm workers from Mexico, and I represented out-of-work loggers from Prineville. My farm worker clients were the hardest working people I'd ever met. My logger clients, when they lost their jobs, they lost more than their job. They lost their sense of identity and self-worth. I was proud and honored to work my tail off to fight for justice for them. And I, my style then, and I like to think it's my style now, that I collaborate, until collaboration doesn't work anymore. But we collaborated back then. I was friends with deputy district attorneys. I developed good relationships with them. I respected many of them. And, the ones I was close with, when I would see an injustice in a case, I would bring it to them. I'd be forthright with them, and I'd explain it to them. And sometimes they would try to rectify it, right? And sometimes they wouldn't. And when they wouldn't, they would almost always say, "Hey, John, I'm with you on this, but I got orders from above. And the above was the elected DA. And so they would march into court and make an argument that they knew was unjust. And right then I told myself, I can never be a deputy DA, but I could be an elected DA because, if I'm calling the shots, I can do it, but I can't take orders to do something that was unjust. And so when my deputy DA on that case that I was working with, when they wouldn't right the wrong, my client and I would go to trial. We would sometimes win and we would sometimes lose. Now, as a district attorney, every time I see an injustice in a case, I rectify it. Now, I'm not so arrogant to believe I catch every injustice, right? That would be foolish to say. And I'm not so arrogant to think that my view of justice is always correct. But the awesome power of a DA to right every injustice that they see with the stroke of a pen, it's palpable. We want the right people holding this pen. I can tell you almost every day, I have a case come across my desk where I look at it and I say, no, that's an overreach by the police. That's an overreach by one of my deputies. I don't care, if it's a technical violation. No. And that pen is saying no every day. You want the right person holding that pen. Now, this defensive work is often necessary because the police might mischarge a case, right? They get it wrong. They overcharge it. They might be, thinking the right thing, and that's great. It's often necessary because new evidence is obtained after an initial charging decision. We see too many elected DAs when they charge something, then they get locked on that. And they don't want to consider new evidence because maybe in their mind, it would show that they were wrong with the initial charging decision. But here's where I think so those are very important. I don't want to minimize those first two. But here's something that I really see where having the right DA is right. It's often necessary and most beneficial to have that DA in there when I can tell you, when I look at a case, I cannot fathom what good would come to society from proceeding with the case in front of me. Damn the facts that the facts are there and the law lines up. What good would come of proceeding with this prosecution? And far too few elected DAs do that. And most of them, if they see that it's mischarged, they'll fix it. But just asking yourself, the evidence is there, the law is there, but what good would come of going forward? And that's where you need elected DAs playing good defense on that. Now, offense. Here's what a good DA can do on offense. And we see very few elected DAs across the country playing offense. And to me, offense as a DA means working with your community and your community partners to develop innovative programs to prevent crime in the first place, right? When I came in as DA, what I told my team and the community was that far too often, DAs view their job as to sit back, wait for crimes to happen out in the community, and then aggressively prosecute the offender. Well, I mean, you ask any victim of a crime, would she had rather an old school DA who sat back and waited for her to be victimized, but then went for a really long sentence? Or would she had rather an innovative DA who had worked with the community to prevent her from being victimized in the first place? Well, I mean, when you frame it that way, you know what the answer is. But we never frame it that way. Why don't we do that? That is ridiculous. And I tell you, early on in my time in my office, I had two deputy DAs come to me and say, hey, John, sounds like what you're saying is it's kind of like a little social workery, like you kind of want us to be like social workers. And I went to law school to be a trial attorney, not a social worker. And I said, well, first, thanks for your candor. Thanks for coming forward. And this is how we're going to do it here, right? Social work is part of the work of a district attorney. And if you don't align with that, that's fine. I can respect, there's a new philosophy here. And if it doesn't work for you, I'll help you find another job. But we are going to work to prevent crime in our community. It sounds nuts that is viewed as radical by some people. Two examples that I rolled out in Deschutes County, working with others. But one was the Clean Slate program 7 years ago. I developed a program that handles all drug possession cases in the medical system, not in the criminal justice system. It's a pre-charge diversion program. We get someone hooked up with a primary care provider who gives them the services they need, and we never put their case in court. Doing that, people who go through traditional criminal justice prosecution in Deschutes County for drug offenses, historically they had a recidivism rate of 64%. People in this clean slate program have a recidivism rate of 35%. That's obviously good for those people and their families and their loved ones.
The ad word in your cafeteria?
It's also good for our community because there's less crimes committed. Now, the emerging adult program we rolled out 2 months ago. We brought this into Deschutes County. I think everyone on the call here probably knows this, that the neuroscience tells us now that children's brains don't fully develop at 18. Everyone is unique, but if you generalize, it's roughly around 24 or 25 when the human brain fully develops. Yet we treat people who turn 18 as magically adults. They should know what they're doing. But if someone's 17, we handle their case in juvenile court because, hey, they're a kid, they didn't really know what they were doing. So we saddle a 19 or 20-year-old with a criminal conviction for life, even though we know as, adults and, an evolved society who looks to data and science that person's brain was not fully developed. And a brain that's not fully developed leads to impulsive decisions. And so with that knowledge of that brain science, well, I'd say the Oregon legislature should change the age of juvenile court from 18 up to 25. But unless and until that happens, what I'm doing in Deschutes County is I'm treating kids between the ages of, emerging adults between the ages of 18 and 24, exactly as their case would be handled if it was handled in juvenile court, meaning we're focusing on rehabilitation instead of punishment. We're focusing on giving these emerging adults the tools they need to succeed. And if they cooperate, they'll get out of the case without a criminal conviction. That's what's happened. That's what happens in juvenile court. And that's what's happening in this new program. And also we added a veterans intervention program. If you go overseas and risk your life for our country, if you come back on the homeland and, the injuries you received overseas are a contributing factor to you committing a crime, well, we owe it to you as a society to stand up and help you. You fought for us overseas. We're gonna fight for your well-being over here. And so I'm really proud of that program. And what about special teams? So we talked about defense and offense. And special teams, to me, special teams this is like the DAs who maybe go above and beyond. This is improving the law in the legislature and by direct democracy. Don't just deal with the statutes you have, play a part in, having the law that you think we should have. And Measure 110 is one example of that. We decriminalized drugs. People are struggling with an addiction, and we are helping them out by not saddling them with the criminal conviction and expanding access to recovery services. Myself and I know Mike Schmidt supported that. And that was viewed as, whoa, elected DAs who are supporting that. To me, it was the easiest thing ever, because I know that treating drugs in the criminal justice system results in more crime, and treating it in the medical system results in less crime. So actually, I was taking the tough on crime prevention position, and people thought, oh, you're soft. Well, heck no, we need to change that view. And that was a position that makes our community safer. And we need to have more DAs who say that. And now how about the great win that we all had together? Children are no longer automatically charged in adult court for Measure 11 crimes. And that was a huge win in Salem. And to wrap it up, we couldn't do any of this without good coaches, right? And to me, the coaches of this movement in Oregon are the Safety and Justice PAC members. Everyone on this call and our leaders, in the home office, y'all are the Bill Belichick of the criminal justice reform movement. I really mean it. Much of any success I've had would not have been possible without the coaches at the Safety and Justice PAC. So thanks for all you do. You've supported me through my career. It's meant a lot to me. I'm happy. I've always supported you. I always will. And I hope everyone on this call steps up and continues to support the Safety and Justice PAC. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, John. Yes, really appreciate it. And now we are going to turn it over to, I hope, did I see Representative Valderrama? Yes, oh, there she is now, she's right there. To Representative Valderrama. For those of you who don't know Andrea Valderrama, she is a mother, advocate, and Latinx leader and the representative of House District 47, and she's also the chair of the David Douglas School Board. She has also been the policy director of ACLU, the advocacy director of the Coalitions of Communities of Color, and an outreach and policy advisor with the city of Portland. It is so exciting to have her in the legislature. I cannot tell you all. She is fantastic. She has stepped up in so many ways for criminal justice. And, you know, I'll just say, because I forgot to say it earlier, lots of progressives don't show up for criminal justice or don't show up very much. They don't jump in with both feet. They're afraid of the issue. They're afraid of being attacked. They focus on other very important issues, but not this one. And Rep. Valderrama has just been not just there for us, but saying, how can I be involved? How can I do more? And asking us to help her do more to advance progressive policy. So I'm super excited that she's in the legislature and here with us tonight. Rep. Valderrama.
Thank you so much, Shannon. That was really lovely. I didn't realize I was going to get a fancy intro, but a good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining in this virtual space this evening. As you all know, my name is Andrea Valderrama, she, her, ella pronouns. I have the pleasure and honor of serving as the state representative for Outer East Portland's House District 47. And I'm just so excited to see so many faces here for this event. It's great to see that there are so many others who also have this shared interest in criminal justice reform. And as Shannon said, this really is an issue that is personally meaningful to me and important for a variety of reasons. And it was actually one of the first social justice issues that I began learning about and addressing. And so I'd like to share a little bit about how I appreciate the opportunity, as I've actually never shared this story or this experience before. When I was younger, a person in my family was incarcerated for a mistake and shortly thereafter detained by ICE on courthouse steps after arriving to a custody hearing and an attempt to regain custody of her children. The mistake was nonviolent. The mistake has been decriminalized since in states like here in Oregon, and the mistake had never happened again. After she had been forcefully taken away in front of her children and in front of all of us, our family hasn't quite been the same ever since. The system failed us. And so this is how I came to center criminal justice in my own advocacy, or rather how criminal justice advocacy found me. Now, while I'm a new legislator, I'm not new to the movement. I'm not a new abolitionist. I'm not a new organizer. And I know that we've been working a long time together for change, and I'm really proud that we accomplished some milestones this past session. I'm deeply honored to have chief-sponsored HB 3265, which is our Sanctuary Promise Act, and to have been working on sanctuary policies for many years, but obviously we know there's more work to be done there. And I'm glad that we passed several police reform bills, but our criminal justice system absolutely needs prioritization and needs reform, and I'd argue abolition to an extent. I'm so thrilled that the Transforming Justice Coalition secured over $25 million in state funding for so many incredible things, right? It's a huge victory for community safety alternatives, restorative justice, eliminating supervision fees, as was previously mentioned, and investing in BIPOC communities, really thanks to the leadership of organizations like Partnership for Safety and Justice and other BIPOC-led, really grassroots organizing efforts. But this is why I say that our work is intersectional. Restorative justice is criminal justice. Immigrant rights are human rights. Racial profiling by police is institutionalized white supremacy. All of this is so intersectional. And that's why I do the work that I do, right? We know that we have more work to do. State-sanctioned violence, either from ICE or the police or carceral staff, is never okay. Longer sentences for Black and Brown community members is never okay. Driving anywhere feeling like ICE or the police are going to pick me up is never okay. I think that, we do have a long way to go, at least for policy fixes. HB 2002, I want to lift that up as a missed opportunity this past session, and I'll continue to prioritize it and sponsor and do what I can to make sure that we're coming in and filling in the gaps of the areas that were unfortunately unable to win this past session. But really deep appreciations to organizations like Partnership for Safety and Justice, whose advocacy and coalition efforts are truly remarkable here in Oregon, and we need more of it. And then I'll just close by saying that I actually reflect pretty often on how my family has changed since that particular day. I work in coalition on ballot measures like Measure 110, sanctuary policies, climate justice, workers' rights, immigrant rights, criminal justice reform, education. I've been in this movement for about a decade here in Oregon and longer in my time, in my lifetime, but it never quite feels like enough. It never brings back my family to the way that we were before. We never get the time back, but we can certainly keep moving and keep healing forward. And I think that's why we're all here in this space collectively, because we all believe that that is true. And so I just want to thank you all so much for being here and for supporting and investing in essential organizations like Partnership for Safety and Justice, and investing in this healed future that I know personally is one of the main reasons why I do what I do. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm just really looking forward to continue on my journey as a newer state representative. And that's it.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you for sharing your story with us for your first time. That's really an honor. Appreciate you and your leadership. So now I'm going to introduce Lamar Wise, who is a Safety and Justice Oregon board member, familiar to many of you. Lamar wears many different hats. He's the political coordinator for AFSCME. He's the co-founder of Washington County Ignite, which is a political organization, an organizer of Reimagine Oregon, a community-led and Black-centered coalition focused on advancing racial justice in Oregon, and has also been really involved in our Transforming Justice Coalition. Lamar does more than anyone I know. It's just amazing how much this man gets done. So we are honored to have him on the Safety and Justice Oregon board, and looks good in all his hats. Yes, he does. And have him speaking with us tonight. Lamar?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, I'm just like, who is she talking about? I really appreciate that. Hey everyone, my name is Lamar Wise. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I first off want to thank our speakers, DA Hummel and Representative Valderrama. I honestly hope that everyone here was moved to action by our speakers. And I'm here to say that our movement is growing, right? I'm here to make sure that we are all a part of that growth. My time at Safety and Justice Oregon, I've been here for 4 years now. And what I've seen is Safety and Justice Oregon pushing for a more just and transformative place here by enacting smart policy and building deep partnerships with community in a way that is trauma-informed and in line with our values. And it's time to build on that work. We need to make sure that we're protecting our champions and getting new champions elected to office. And so I'm going to ask you to take a moment and think about what it takes to change the landscape here in Oregon. And then I'm going to need you to double whatever you're thinking, because that's what it's going to take for us to win, right? We have a lot of work that we still have left to do, and we can't be afraid to do it.
At this point, I just want to thank you all so much for joining us on yet another Zoom event. We really appreciate you, and thank you again to all our wonderful co-hosts. What we're going to do is, I would invite you to maybe DJ our event again and play your wonderful playlist, and invite folks to stay on. If you want to enjoy the music, you can come off mute and chat with each other. But that really concludes our evening. We didn't want to take up too much of your time, and we want to thank you all for being here with us tonight.